Hi everybody, my name is Lisa and this is my channel, The Psychology Teacher. As you can tell, I primarily am a psychology teacher, or hope to be in the future. Currently I'm actually teaching adult learning. I teach creative writing and I teach a class that's kind of a blend of English and history, which is the history of words, and we look at grammar and all sorts of exciting stuff, so I do that. And in the future I'm going to be teaching some CBT, or cognitive behavioural therapy, and I'm also going to be teaching some psychology classes. And I'm currently, or from tomorrow, I'm going to be enrolling to do my QTLS so that I can actually teach psychology at AS and A level in colleges and schools, and GCSE psychology as well. So that's a little bit about me at the moment, and on this channel what I want to do is talk about the PGCE in education, my experience, some hints and tips and advice, and I just wanted to do a video on some things that I have found that there has been a lack of on YouTube. So I feel like the ILP is one big thing. It's a huge thing as a part of your course. We'll come across that later, but there aren't any videos on it. And I want to be able to do that because it's something that I was looking for at the time. I'm a very creative person, I had lots of ideas myself, but it's always nice to get a little bit of feedback from somebody else who's done it. So I'm hoping that my channel can give you some advice on that. Also, I'm going to be doing some general teaching advice, differentiation, I struggle with that word, and lesson planning, and making resources. I make all my own resources. I'm very creative, so it's always nice to be able to make your own resources. It's something that you can have with you, that you have made, that you can keep with you, and if you make them well then they'll last a long time. The teacher's toolkit, which is something that I find is important. I have like a mini teaching toolkit, and then I have my trolley. Even simple things just as what to have in your pencil case, which I know is like, why are you going to tell me that? But I have a pencil case that literally, no matter what came up, I always had something to use for the job. And I think teaching is a lot about being prepared for anything, in my experience. Because you can think that you can prepare and that this will go exactly as you have planned it, but I have found that that is rarely the case. So yeah. So lots of general things, also some psychology as well, because obviously that's what I teach, and I'm going to be doing some kind of psychology lessons and some ideas and hints and tips for things that you can do in psychology, and particularly at AQA, AS and A level. So that's a little bit of an overview about me. I completed my training this year. Like I said, I'm about to do the QTLS training, and I am currently teaching in an adult learning environment, which is very rewarding and I really enjoy it, and it's a great experience. So enough waffling, I have notes, because yes, I am organised. I'm a very organised person. I drive myself mad sometimes, but I wanted to put this in sections because I also am a waffler. So if you really enjoy listening to people waffle on, this is the place for you. No, just kidding. I'm hoping that I can really give you some advice and help along the way. So the PGCE in education, you can do it full-time or part-time. Full-time, I kind of almost wish I had done it full-time now. It would have been over in a year, but that is a large amount of commitment, in that that is 110 hours of teaching, and sometimes it can be hard to find a placement that would be able to give you 110 hours. If you have got somewhere that you know you can go and you can teach a couple of days a week, you are probably going to get those hours very quickly. A couple of people on my course actually were teaching in the venue that I had my placement, and they started as a placement and then a position came up, so they got to do more hours, and that was great for them. But with psychology, well, this is what you continue. No! Oh, take it then, have it. Right, okay. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be talking about the part-time PGCE in education, because I'm not entirely sure exactly of the hours of the full-time, but I do know that it's 110 hours of teaching hours that you need. The course costs, I believe, it was $2,400 per year, and with the part-time, it's one night per week of tutor time or teaching time, and that is 3 hours, and then you find a placement to be able to get. For my first year I had to get 50 hours, for my second year I had to get 60 hours of teaching. You can do this course at colleges that are holding it as it funded by a university. So I actually did mine at a college, but it was actually funded by a different university, so it was I did it at New College Durham, but it was actually funded or supported by the University of Teesside. So that's what my qualification will be. It is a PGCE education, University of Teesside. It's just it was hosted at a different venue. So you can find some colleges that will do this course, or you can do it at actual university. It depends on what you prefer. But it's a good idea to maybe have a look around and just see what's going to suit you best, because obviously different colleges also will run the course on different evenings. This was initially going to be a daytime course, which was going to be better for me, but because of the certain numbers of people who had enrolled on it, they actually made it an evening course. So that's a little bit of a shame, but it didn't matter at the end of the day. It depends on your venue, as I say, but generally we'll have a number of modules that you will work through. You'll do a placement, as many placements as you like, to be fair, but I did 40-60. So the first year I had to get 40 hours of teaching, 60 hours in the second. The teaching is within the period of time that you are actually academically doing the course. So it has to run from, say, the September through to June. Anything after that obviously can't be included because it has to, your ILP has to be submitted. The ILP is submitted in June, which is at the end of your course, and then that is marked, and that's an overall mark. Whatever you're teaching, so if I want to teach A level or anything below, then I would need to have a degree in that subject. So whatever you're going to teach, you would need to have the level above. So if I was going to teach GCSE, I'd want to have an A level in that particular subject. So that's kind of how it works, or how it was described. It depends on where you get your placement. Some placements you might get opened up to new opportunities, and that is exciting. My placement, I didn't have a lot of scope really, but like I said, I want to do that in a different video. But what I did teach was psychology, so I taught AS and A-level psychology. So I taught year 1 and year 2 students, and I taught that through both years. I also had another placement where I taught creative writing. I delivered GCSE taster sessions in psychology. So I had a little bit of a varied experience, and it was really good actually. It was stressful, I'm not going to deny it. There was something that kind of came up with the placements that caused a lot of stress. It's really good to kind of try and arrange your placements if you can before you actually start, because you don't want to start and then be scrambling and looking for a placement. But sometimes it's quite good to reach out and just have a look around in local venues that you'd like to teach. Reach out to them, explain your circumstances and see whether you can get a placement. I actually secured my placement before I applied. So on that day when I went and viewed the college, I got talking to the teacher who taught psychology there, and then she was my mentor. She was very interested in having me work with her. So that was really fortunate. So placement is a big part of it, because you need to obviously provide evidence that you can teach, I guess, as much as anything. Yeah, so it's basically looking at your skills. Throughout the year, or throughout the 2 years, you'll have a number of modules to do. We had 5 modules and they each covered a different part of education. Within each module we would have varied assignments. So this is a course that's not just an ILP, and if you're wondering, you're waffling about an ILP and I don't know what it is, it's an individual learning portfolio. So this ILP that you produce, you do it for the first year at the end, and then whatever you've created in the first year, you need to continue that on in the second year and submit it all again. Because we had a lot of confusion about that, where we thought the ILP for first year, we would just do that, take it home, put it on the shelf, do a second one and have that for the second year. But they didn't want that, they wanted to have both of them. I will do a separate video completely going through my whole ILP, because there is a lack of that on YouTube. I came onto YouTube to find videos about ILPs, couldn't find any. Now I know some people can be very precious about not sharing that kind of thing, but though I'm a very creative person, I did want some inspiration and some guidance and just kind of what other people felt about doing this ILP, and their worries about it, their concerns, their hints, their tips. I think it's really valuable, because it depends on your teacher and how much guidance they give you, but sometimes you can feel a little bit in the dark, and I'm not going to deny that that is exactly how I felt. Before I knew it, I put this ILP together and I really wasn't entirely sure what to put in it. So the ILP is definitely something very important to me. Look out for a video on that, but basically in this ILP you're looking to show your knowledge of education and your experience of education. So in there you will need to keep a log of all your hours that you've taught and mentor meetings. I met with my mentor every week. I would meet before I taught and usually after I taught. I didn't log every single part of that. We also would email back and forth through the week, so I had a lot of contact with my mentor. It's entirely up to you and up to your mentor how that relationship works. It really depends on your mentor, I guess, how busy they are and how involved they want to be, and then you. I can talk about my experience, but really that's going to differ from every single relationship that a mentor-mentee have. It really depends on the dynamic and how busy they are as well. But yes, so you have a mentor, and they basically are the mentor who oversees your placement, and they do some of your placement sort of reviews. So you get, now every single course differs, so I could show you my assignments and talk about what I put in mine, and I'm very happy to do that. I would never show you the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? It's not that I think people would copy me because my work's so amazing. I did really well, but assignments are very different. So for instance, we had a lady who couldn't finish her second year due to ill health, so she deferred and she came into ours because she was a January start, and then she wasn't ill, wasn't well, and then she kind of came in on our September start. So she joined us, but she actually, because she was on a different programme, because they changed programme, her assignments were different to ours. So there will be the same sort of area of education, the same subject, but it might differ. So I will share information on those assignments, but it's a variety of things. We did reports and essays, and it really depended. In our class we had level 4s and level 5s. I was a level 5 because I had a degree in the subject that I was going to teach in, but there were a number of level 4s who had just left school or didn't have a degree in a particular subject area. So they were level 4s, and like I said, I'm a level 5. So we had those assignments slightly differed, but we'd have reports and essays. I'd say that's all we did for the first year. We did reports and essays, and then the ILP. And then for the second year, we had one poster assignment, and then we have reports and essays, and again, ILP. The poster assignment was fantastic. I really enjoyed that because I'm a really creative person. But yeah, the assignments were interesting. It'd been a very long time since I'd wrote an essay and a report, and it's really quite different. What I'd say is I'd ask questions of the teacher of like what they're looking for. When I wrote reports when I did my degree, it was very different, and we were taught how to write a report in that you were not allowed to put any kind of personal feeling, you weren't allowed to use the word I, you didn't use your experience, you were writing a report as an outside person. When they did the reports where in this course, I had to include my experience and my feelings. So I found that just quite difficult. So I would say always clarify the assignment with the teacher. Make sure you know exactly what this assignment is looking for and the things that you should include. Reference-wise, they always say kind of read around. I included references from YouTube. That was a really nice place to kind of use something a little bit different. And then I would use the internet primarily for 90% of my resources. I went to the library and found books, but the books, there wasn't a great supply of books, and a lot of them were very old. So I didn't tend to use the library resources over much. But if I did find extracts from a book online, and sometimes they'll give you chapters and PDFs, then I would actually reference the book. I wouldn't reference that I got that off the internet, I'd reference a book. So you can get round that, and you can, journal articles obviously as well, you would reference that as a journal article. And I will put a mini video up about referencing up on my channel, because I actually teach referencing in my subject, because in the subject that I teach, ASA level psychology, you do need to know how to reference. So I will actually put a little mini lesson up on here about that, because that was a good lesson for me. The students really enjoyed it, and it's always good to know how to reference. We used Harvard referencing. There are different styles. That's also a thing worth clarifying. What type of referencing does your institution expect you to use? Always make sure that you're very clear about that, because you don't want to get that wrong. So that's kind of the assignments. So reading around, the internet is great. Just finding a lot of old journals and, like I said, book articles is great. I did purchase a couple of books, which I bought the Sabertooth Curriculum by Peddywell. Highly, highly recommend buying that. You can pick it up for so cheap. I picked it up online. I got it off eBay for, I think it was £4.99. That was included postage. That was great. It's somewhere on the shelf. I'm not entirely sure where it is at the moment. But we did read about the Sabertooth Curriculum, and then I did my poster based off that. And yeah, I've got a little video which is called Teach, Sleep, Repeat. I will link that in the information bar below. I'm not sure if that's on this channel or my other channel. because I have a channel that I plan to use for teaching where I'm going to make my own videos and put them up and then use them in class. So I have a lot of plans for my creative teaching in the future, and I will do a video on that as well. So another very important feature of the PGCE is your reflective journal. You will keep this throughout the 2 years. I actually did mine as 2 separate journals, one for year 1 and year 2. Everybody approaches the reflective journal differently. And basically that's what I want to say about the whole thing. The coursework, the ILP, the reflective journal. It's all about how you want to do it. Don't look at the person sitting next to you and think they've done that differently, so mine is wrong. It is very different. I found that it's very subjective, the way you present your knowledge and your take on things within this course, or that's my experience. So some people, when they had their ILP in, had a tiny little folder this thick. I had 3 folders. One of them was resources, in fairness, but because I felt that was a big strength of mine, but I had 2 lever arch binders, and everybody's different. I just crammed a lot in, but you'll see that in that separate video. But the reflective journal is something that you keep and you just reflect on your teaching. So I would reflect on my Monday night classes and talk about the things that I did there. I've read over it. It's really great to go back and revisit it, and you get a lot of ideas, and I just find I teach creative writing, and I teach the value of being able to write something and how cathartic that can be, and how a great experience writing can be to get your feelings out on paper. So I really enjoyed the reflective journal process. I had the class on the Monday night, and then I did Tuesday teaching. So when I came home on a Tuesday, I would write my reflective journal. That is one of my biggest tips. I'm going to do a whole video on the reflective journals because they are so huge. It's a big part of what you do, and there's lots of little things that you wouldn't think about that should be in there and shouldn't be in there. So that's another thing. I've got so many videos coming on this channel. I really hope you're going to enjoy them and that they're going to be helpful for you. But the reflective journal was incredibly useful, but I would say write it as you go. Don't leave it. You want to reflect as you go. It can seem a little bit of a pain, but it actually just makes it so much easier because you're on top of it. Some people typed it. Some people wrote it on separate sheets of paper. They made their own template and they would write it. They would, you know, one of my colleagues, one of my fellow classmates, she'd have the date and then the class, like the lesson it was about, or the lessons, and then she would write like the content that she taught, and then she would reflect. So everybody's different. I actually bought 2 A4 sort of notebook styles, and that's what I did. I actually kept it as a proper journal. But you don't have to just write. Stick things in it, stick pictures in it, stick pictures. I would always have my mobile phone with me and take pictures of things that we'd done in class, pictures of posters that we'd made together. Lots of pictures that show the things that you're doing and have done. Resources that you've made, posters that your students have done and that you've put up in class, parts of lessons, anything that can make it really colourful and less flat. They like journals to be very colourful, they like it to be reflective, but they like it to be, I suppose it's really for the person who reads it as well. It's nice for it not to just be text and laden down. Another important part is observations. So you will actually observe experienced teachers, you'll observe a peer or another classmate, and you will be observed in your teaching. The first thing that you'll start off with is a micro teach, and I'm going to do a separate video on that from my experience because I commented on all of my own classmates' micro teachers in my reflective journal. I felt like I learned a lot, most positive, a couple of negative things which were great, because when you do this you will begin to realise, if you haven't taught before, that you learn as much from the negative things as you do the positive, and that is hugely important. And to reflect and to improve and to constantly be willing to reflect and improve. And I think that's the thing about teaching. There will never be such a thing as a perfect teacher, because you are always learning and growing and changing and developing and improving. And that's important. And that's something I didn't really think of when I first started, but that's something that I definitely developed throughout, and which was a very valuable part of the experience. And also that you will never teach a lesson that will be perfect, that will work every time with every group of students. So you've always be prepared. I now, on the end of every lesson, tag on a bunch of extra stuff and carry early finishing exercises and have those things with me, because If the class runs shorter, then you always have something to fall back on, and you just stand there going, well, what am I going to do now? So kind of advice about not getting caught out. The recommended reading that we had was this book called Teaching Today by Jeff Petty. This is the 5th edition. There are a number of editions before. Some of the library, I mean, all of them went out of the library, so my teacher very nicely brought me in a copy of the, I think it was the 4th edition, which is smaller. The editions before this are very text heavy, and this one I feel has diagrams, anecdotes, tables, lots of useful things that kind of break it up. It's not that I can't sit and read a book of just text, but certainly when you have those things to break it up, I think it just makes it easier. It's a very thick book, as you can see. We're all those kinds of people. I mean, I have so many textbooks on this bottom shelf that were from my degree, but sometimes you buy a book and then you read the little bits that you need, but you necessarily don't read it at all. However, this book I have loved. I love the way it's written. I love Jeff Petty's writing voice. I found it really useful, and I've actually made notes on a number of the chapters already, and I'm still continuing to read it and make notes. It's a very, very valuable read. It's very generalised, so there's a lot of great hints and tips that are really useful, and it's really great to delve into to get the odd quotes to put into essays and reports, because he has had some very important things to say about teaching. So this is a practical guide, Teaching Today. I think I got this for around £23 off Amazon. It is quite pricey. It's an investment worth making, and like I said, this version, nice large text. There is a lot of text in there, but the grey sections are really useful, kind of breaking it down. It's got some nice little tables in there, and it does have like little diagrams and images that really help you kind of get the grasp on things. But it's a really excellent overall book. What I will say is that everybody is different. We're all at different levels, we all have something to bring. So in a class, don't feel that just because you haven't taught, you have nothing to bring, that you can't say things that are interesting, that you have no experience, because we're all very different. In my class there was a lot of varying experience, a lot of different subjects. Nobody was teaching the same thing. Well, 2 girls were teaching engineering, but different parts of it. And it was all very, you know, we all brought something. We're all very different. I was a very organised, very creative person. Other people in the class were very different. We all had that different kind of view and opinion, and we all brought different experiences to the table. And that is what is important. And you don't just learn from your negatives and positives, you will find that you can learn from other people's negatives and positives. We did a couple of events where we got together and we were able to share some of our resources. That was also very useful. I don't know whether your venue would do that, but it was called a teach meet, and those, I loved them. But the teach meets were everybody bringing something along that they used, so a resource that they found was very useful, something they'd created themselves, something they'd found, and that was great. So I made a lot of notes, came across a couple of things, and I actually came across story cubes from there. And I use them. I've used them so much, particularly in my creative writing, but yeah, story dice are amazing. They're a great asset. Yeah, I think I've covered everything there. What I'll say to you is, like I said, everybody brings something. Don't feel that you can't bring anything and that you don't have any value in the classroom, because you do. We're all different. Also, you teach how you feel you want to teach. There's all this flipped learning that's going on at the minute that I'm not a massive fan of myself. I do intend on, I'm developing my own flipped learning at the moment, which I'm excited to try, but I don't feel that everything should be taught that way. And don't let it dishearten you if you get an observation from somebody who will point out, oh, students shouldn't be making notes from a PowerPoint, because all different material has to be delivered in different ways, and sometimes there's value of that. I actually believe there's value in people copying things off a PowerPoint, and that's from a psychological perspective, because I'm talking about it and I'm reading what it says. They're hearing me, so it's audio learning. They're looking at it, visual learning, and then they're writing it down, kinesthetic learning. So it's actually they're kind of reinforcing what they're hearing, what they're seeing, what they're writing, and then they read through to make sure it makes sense. So there is a lot of value in that. So don't let people say to you that there's no value in your style and how you prefer to teach. It's just about getting the right balance. And it's all different depending on the age of your students, the subject, and it can also be very much governed if there's a syllabus with yours. Teaching AS and A-level psychology, I was governed by the AQA syllabus and the specific things that we had to teach for that. that was great. It gave me something where I could actually focus. When I did my A-level psychology, I remember it being absolutely huge. We would learn 20 odd studies for a subject. We did over 20 subject studies for attachment, and there was no indication of which ones would be the most important. Now it's not like that. There are particular studies that say, right, you need to know your Bowlby, your Ainsworth, Lorenz and Harlow. These are the things that now they kind of govern it a little bit more. So like I said, it all varies depending on your subject, and also where you teach, at what level you teach. But what I would say is have fun. I was a very nervous teacher, definitely for the first 6 months. I found it very difficult standing in front of people and talking, feeling a little bit self-conscious. But I do find that when I came in the second year, I felt a lot more relaxed about that. And I did feel a lot of elements of that kind of thing was difficult, but I want to talk about them more in a placement video, because I want to talk about my placements, because I had some great experience in my placements and I want to be able to talk about that. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today. Upcoming on my channel, I'm going to do hints and tips about being a great teacher. I'm going to talk about the teaching toolkit. There'll be a little video on my pencil case. I'm going to do lesson planning. I'm going to do the ILP, talk about assignments and all the different variant subjects, some of the things that I've talked today. The micro teach, I'm going to do a video on that and a video on the reflective journals. So if you're going to do your PGCE, then I hope you subscribe here and look for hints and tips. If you have any advice or questions, then please do feel free to ask them in the comment section below. I'm very happy to give you feedback and answer questions based on my experience and give you any advice that I can. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!